got a really informative presentation from special guest speaker this evening, Matt Baker. Matt has helped us in the past on a number of occasions. He's come on to Property Millionaire here and talked about his story. He's shared his tips, and he's also appeared on our podcast as well, and does various other things. Their ethos is such giving, and you'll see that as he goes through the presentation of how they are working now on helping the wider industry in HMO. It affects us all, not just if you're a HMO landlord. It affects every single landlord, because as soon as the government find a way to grab money out of us landlords, and they succeed, then they will do it again and again and again. And we have seen this through the last 10, 15 years, or even more, that the people keep doing, the government keep requesting money, demanding, making laws that say this is, landlords, they think that we've got money and that we are easy targets. So Matt will explain that what him and his team have done is rebutted that and have worked tirelessly on our behalf to get a campaign together to protest. Well, it's not a protest, but to make their viewpoints known. So we're going to go for about an hour. So if his presentation is 30-40 minutes long, that's great. There'll be time for questions at the end, but we do need you to take some action this evening. Matt is going to share some slides, and he's going to share some websites that you need to go to and fill in forms that will help, as I say, not just HMO landlords, but every landlord property investor going forward. So we all need to team together. So that's enough for me. So good evening, Matt. How are you doing?
Hi, good evening, Sunil. Hello, everybody, and thank you for having me on again. It's great to be here. Always a good bunch of people. I really enjoy a lot of the conversations and chats that also go on in the WhatsApp group as well. So yeah, thank you for having me on. So as Sunil said, the main focus of what I wanted to talk about tonight is less about me and more about the wider property community and the issues that are facing us when it comes to HMOs. And in particular, one thing that I've been heavily involved in for well over a year now is the HMO Council Tax Reform Group, where I've been working alongside Wendy Whitaker-Large, Darren Brewer, Alan Murdy, and now Neil Chadder. And we've been working on this and basically trying to get rid of this stupid tax whereby rooms within HMOs have been rebanded as individual dwellings, regardless of the facilities that are within the room. So, but I'll get into that in a moment, because I'm sure there are people here tonight who've heard of this issue, and there'll probably be others that haven't heard of it, and there'll be others that have been affected by it. In fact, actually, it would be quite interesting before we get into tonight, has anybody been affected by the Valuation Office Agency rebanding their rooms? So if they have, you just pop it in the chat, and then I get a sense of if anyone has been affected. If you've not been affected, pop it in there too, so at least I can see people replying and get a sense of who's in there. Let me just get the chat up. So, nope. So no one's been affected. I'm sure you'd be screaming right now if you had been affected. So I suppose this is a good thing. But something to be aware of is that the way that it has been going over the last 7 or 8 years now, which is when this has started to become a problem. Over the last 7 or 8 years, the Valuation Office Agency has taken a view and is systematically rebanding every HMO. So it's not a matter of if you're going to get caught by this, it would be a matter of when you're going to get caught by this. So that's why it needed to be stopped and needed to be changed. I'm going to go into that in more detail as we go along. But before we do, I'm just going to introduce myself, because I know some of you in the room, but there are some people who are new faces to me. So I will just do a brief synopsis about me and why I'm involved in this particular issue. And so my name is Matt Baker. I'm a committee member with the HMO Council Tax Reform Group. But why did I get involved in that? Well, I am the co-founder of an HMO and co-living development company called Scott Baker Properties. We are award-winning. We won Co-Living Deal of the Year 2022 at the Property Investor Awards, and we won 3 awards at the HMO Awards last year as well. So it's great to be recognised for actually doing something, you know, positive, something good within this industry as well. I'm also co-founder of the HMO platform, which is probably one of the UK's only HMO co-living focused training providers. That is something which I spend quite a bit of time doing, working with other people on their projects, which is fantastic to see. So that's one reason why this is a big thing that we need to change, because we work with lots of clients who are really scared by this, but that could potentially affect them in the future. I'm also the co-founder of Co-Home, which is a co-living management agency. We manage properties in the Midlands and on the South Coast, from Southampton through to Brighton, and soon to be starting up in Kent as well in the next 2-3 months. So we've got, and we're managing the high-end, good quality properties where we can get that element of co-living within them. So we're very choosy about the types of properties that we manage, and it has worked very well for us. Now, I'm also a best-selling author, so I wrote down a lot of the things that we do from day to day and the process that we go through, from setting up our business to finding properties, to funding properties, to developing them, to make, you know, co-living spaces. Essentially, I wrote a book called Next Level Landlord, you know, towards the end, I might show you guys how you can get a copy of that, and Sunil is probably going to share that towards the end. But the reason why I'm heavily involved in this is because I've been affected by it. I've had 2 HMOs rebanded in the last 5 years. So my first one was rebanded back in 2017. This was a 5-bed all-ensuite HMO, no kitchen facilities in the room. They had a small kitchen which they could share, and it was my 3rd HMO that I'd done those years ago. And the reason why I got caught was because I didn't do my admin properly. So I didn't actually tell the council I bought the property for council tax. So I changed the utilities over, and the one I just hadn't got around to yet was the council tax. So the first time the council heard about the fact that I bought the property was from the HMO officer, because we've been liaising with him to get the HMO license and make sure everything was above board. And I don't know how council tax HMO officers, like the company, how they meet each other. It was the water cooler or the microwave or the kitchen, but that's how they found out about it. So I got a phone call from the council tax department, and they said, well, we understand you bought this property. And I said, oh yeah, yes, of course I have. I'm sorry I hadn't got around to telling you yet. I bought it about 6-8 weeks ago. And so we've heard that you're turning it into an HMO. Is that true? But yes, that's true. Turn it into an HMO. And they said, oh, do you mind sending us through the plans so that we can just check that everything's correct? So I said, yeah, not a problem at all. I sent them through the plans with all the en-suites, and didn't think anything of it, because back then there was no reason not to. I just thought, I'm just going to be above board. I'm just going to tell them what's going on. I don't want to lie to the council. So that's what I did. And within about 2 or 3 weeks, we had 5 bills for 5 sets of council tax. That then became a bit of a problem for us, and I'll refer back to this case study or this example as we go through today, because I have managed to solve it for that one property without having to solve it for everybody. So I'll come back to the solution that we came up with for that particular property. But we've also had another one rebanded just in the last year, and the council, the VOA, have done some really weird stuff with choosing dates. Like the date they chose they backdated the council tax. They took a 3-bed house that was a 7-bed HMO, and then turned to 7-bed HMO, 7 lots of council tax, backdated them to a date like in the middle of the refurb. It's so weird. So we're now having to deal with that one as well. But for those of you who are like going, well, I kind of understand what you're talking about, but not really, I'm going to go back to basics and explain what actually has been happening. So what we do is let's take an ordinary 3-bed house. So you might have a family of 5 living there. So 5 people living in that house as one unit, and they're paying council tax, maybe band A or band B. So that might be about £110 per month that they would be paying. So let's say that we do a bit of jiggery pokery. We stick a few more en-suites in, and then we get an HMO license on it by having five people who are no longer related living in that property. So that ordinary 3-bed house, it's exactly the same property, exactly the same size, just with a little bit more plumbing, essentially. Then the VOA, in my example, found out about it. They then said, well, we think that each of these rooms should be taxable individually, not as one house. So each room then got individually rated for council tax. Now the tenants, because generally they live in their room by themselves, will then be able to get a 25% single occupancy discount. So they do get that. So that 5 lots of 110, because it was 1 lot of Band A, now it's 5 lots of Band A, but with a 25% discount. So that which was £110 a month has now gone up to £412.50 per month. So as you can see, that can be a big killer of the whole HMO model. If this was, and also it's not us that has to pay it. So when we got rebanded, we said to the council, well, we've got a contract which says that the bills are all inclusive. So we're going to continue to pay the bills. So we did. And about 3 months later, we got a big check back saying you can't pay these bills. They refunded us our council tax and then started chasing the tenants for the council tax. So at that point, we said to the tenants, well, of course, it's all inclusive. Bill will we'll refund you, reimburse the council tax once you paid it. So 4 out of the 5 paid the council tax, and we're very happy to do so. And then we reimbursed them the money, and then which obviously that come out of our pocket. And then one of them didn't, ended up getting taken to court by the council, and it ended up with a liability order to pay. So he had to pay it, and obviously we refunded him, but we weren't just going to give the tenants money if they weren't going to go pay the council tax. So once those tenants moved out, we then excluded the council tax from the rent. But obviously, because there could be an HMO around the corner which hasn't been affected, we're no longer competitive for rent. So it's taken a big hit on our bottom line on that particular property. It's unfair. It's inconsistent. Do you know what? It's just downright confusing. It's taken so long for us to understand this, and we've got a barrister, Alan Murdy, who's working with us tirelessly to look at the legal stuff, and he works with people that have got issues with all sorts of council tax and business rates dilemmas, and the law is just so pernickety, it's ridiculous. But for those of you again who are still struggling to follow, I've talked about the VOA, this Valuation Office Agency. And their job is to determine how every single property in the UK should be taxed. So it's your council tax and it's your business rates. Now, the way that the Valuation Office Agency, or the VOA, decides on the banding of residential property is like this. And just to be clear, the VOA is completely separate to the council. So some people say, oh, the council are doing this, the council are doing this. The council are not doing this. The VOA is doing this. The council might be party to do it slightly, but the council won't do this just by themselves. The VOA is the one making the change. So the valuation of your property is based on a theoretical value as if it existed on the 1st of April 1991, which just seems absolutely balmy to me anyway as a concept. And it still remains the case today. So what they're doing is they're taking your 5-bed HMO and going, well, what would it have been worth in 1991? I don't know. It didn't exist in 1991. And also they're retrospective. So they go back in time. So this is the big problem for most landlords, is that when you get caught, they're going to look at your property and say, well, you did your HMO conversion 5 years ago, so we're going to backdate your 5 lots of council tax for 5 years. Then I would say, well, good luck. Well, can I get a refund of the council tax that I paid over those 5 years, and good luck trying to find the tenants that lived there 5 years ago. And this is where you get into a battle with the council about who's responsible for the council tax, because I think there's a misconception that this is actually making money. This is actually losing councils hundreds of thousands of pounds, because they're having to refund landlords and chase tenants. Who are they more likely to get the tax out of, the landlord or the tenant? Landlords are going to pay every single month because they're just going to keep paying. I'm happy to pay the council tax as part of doing business. As soon as you reband it and the tenants are paying, Tenants are less likely to be able to afford to pay. They're less likely to want to pay. And if a tenant has been in that house for 6 months back in 2018, I, as the landlord, probably don't know where they live today. And the council probably don't know where they live today. But Portsmouth Council, which is one of the areas where we got rebanded, and where Darren Brewer, who's the main spearhead of this campaign as part of our group, that's where he's based. And he's had his entire portfolio that he owns and also some that he manages rebanded. And what they're doing is they're backdating, and they're doing credit searches to find the tenants, to send them bills. And chase them. And so they're saying, we think you live here, we're going to send you this bill, we're going to send you this reminder letter, we're going to send you this court summons, we're going to take you to court, we're going to give you this liability order, and then if you don't pay your liability order, we're going to bankrupt you. That's that is what the sequence of events is, the worst case scenario. And this can be happening to tenants without their knowledge. It's a huge issue for actually quite a large portion of tenants. We think there's about 3 million people that can be affected by this. 3 million people, about 5% of the UK population affected by this, because the government estimate there are 500,000 HMOs, and if we think the average HMO is about 6 beds, so that's about 3 million people that can be affected by this, and most of them are probably between the ages of 18, 19 and 30, 35, the ones that are less likely to have the disposable income to be able to afford extra in a cost of living crisis. The other thing which is really important to note is that when the valuation office are making the decision, there's a huge amount of power given to the individual person that looks at your case. In fact, they've got more power than the tribunals that you go to, and tribunals were very highly unlikely to overturn decisions from a listing officer, because listing officer in theory has more power than the tribunal. It's so weird. So the way that I've seen people get around it is to build up a good relationship with the listing officer and negotiate. That's the way you get a good result from this situation, and that depends where you are in the country, what listing officer you've had, also maybe a little bit about your property if it's a bit quirky. But what they've basically been saying is that if you've got an ensuite in your room, we're going to reband you. Not if you've got an ensuite and cooking facilities, it's just an ensuite. Or if you've just got cooking facilities and no ensuite, we'll also reband you. We've also seen examples where they've rebanded a room that has no ensuite or cooking facilities as well. So it's inconsistent and is massively unfair. Now, when a property gets picked up, and there are a few different obvious notifiable moments when a property gets picked up. It's when you apply for a license. It's when you apply for planning permission. It's when you do a commercial to residential conversion. You have to get rebanded from business rates to council tax. So there were a few different notifiable events, and there's also things like they picked people randomly off the HMO register before. I heard about that happening in Eastbourne. So they're just going, we're going to pick up everything which is 7 beds and above, and we're just going to look at them and probably just reband them. So it's been happening randomly. So there's notifiable events happen. So the property gets referred to the VOA, and the VOA will do, they want to test what they call the rateable occupation. So there are 4 tests that they use. They're looking to see what is the occupation of that part of the building. So they're saying, does the room have actual occupation? Yes, they live there. Does it have beneficial occupation? So they have the beneficial use of the room? Yes, they do. It's not too transient. So if they're living there for 3 months, 6 months, that's deemed to be not too transient. And there is no definition of transience in law. And we've tried to test this quite a lot. And Darren Brewer has been trying to get the VOA in Portsmouth, that deal with Portsmouth, to define transience. But he turned one of his or a couple of his HMOs into service accommodation, essentially. So you'll have people staying there 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 3 months, 2 months, and he put this to them, and they said, no, we're not really going to take that into consideration. We're just going to ban it individually. So they couldn't really get a good reason. They didn't overturn it. And the 4th test is, do they have exclusive occupation of that room. And of course you do, because if you have a tenancy agreement for the room, that's exclusive to them. So those are the 4 tests that they're always looking at, and it's impossible to beat those 4 tests, and they're usually met within your tenancy agreement. So if you share the tenancy agreement with them, you've got absolutely no chance. So this is what we mean. If the tests are deemed to be met, then your rooms are in effect rateable, and then they already meet the requirements of being a residential property, a residential dwelling. At no point have we talked about whether it's actually physically possible to live in the property. And this is what they're missing, is that core ingredient, is whether the property can actually be disaggregated in the first place. Now, this is the only time I'm going to use this word of disaggregation, because it doesn't mean a lot to a lot of people. But disaggregation, and when we get to the end of tonight, I'm going to explain why this is important to get a bit of a gist about what this means. Disaggregation means splitting up. So we're taking one house and disaggregating it, or splitting it up into 5 or 6 dwellings. So one house and then disaggregate it to 6. And if you take 6 rooms and aggregate it back into 1. So these are the terminology that the VOA use, and they're also using this terminology in the consultation, which is currently live, which I'll come to later, which hopefully you all know about. So if you get rebanded, so you can still get rebanded now, because and there are people that are challenging it and saying, well, we think the law's going to change, and the VOA is saying, well, the law's not changed yet. So you can still get rebanded today. So it might happen to you tomorrow. If it does, and to ensure that you know about it, make sure that your council tax bills get posted to your home address, so you hear about it really fast, so that you can act on it quickly, because they sometimes put deadlines, like short deadlines, on your ability to respond and appeal. And you can also find out whether it's happening in your investment area. So there are some areas where it's happening really rife. So Portsmouth is just happening, you know, like as soon as you apply for a license, you get rebanded. There are other areas where, especially if the council's disorganized and in the Stone Ages, then it's less likely to happen. We, out of all of our portfolio, only 2 have been, caught. So it's unlikely to happen in a lot of areas, like instantly. But if it started to happen, it's just a matter of time before it comes to you. And also the council will have a position on it. So the council just might not care, and they don't refer to the VOA. Even though the VOA has guidance that tells the council to refer HMOs to the VOA. Some councils just don't do it. Others do it as a matter of course. So you want to kind of get an idea of whether your council's doing it or not, and that will tie in with how many HMOs have been referred and been rebanded. So you always immediately fight it. Any threat to reband, don't just leave it. Fight it straight away and start to kick up a fuss. Start to complain. And if well, at the end of the slide, I'll give you a link in a minute, which is what I forgot to give you, Dan, I'm afraid, but we can find it in a minute. Immediately threaten to fight it. Do not send them any evidence, even if they say you have to, because otherwise, because you're just putting a nail in your own coffin. Do not send them any ASTs or any further evidence that would incriminate you, or that's the wrong kind of word, but that would prove their case for them. Yeah. And then what you can do, if you don't have a clause in your AST which excludes the council tax, in the case of rebanding, get it in your ASTs now. All HMO room ASTs should have this option to exclude the council tax. So in ours, it technically says the council tax is excluded at the discretion of the landlord. So we choose to pay it while it's one, but if it gets rebanded, then it is a liability of the tenant, and the tenant would have to give the standard notice to move out if it happened. Now, what we did with ours in Warrington, the 5-bed, the 3-bed that became a 5-bed HMO, the very first one that got rebanded back in 2017. I just thought that this was the way it was happening, and I moaned about it. I appealed it, lost the appeal. We went to tribunal, lost the tribunal, and I just thought there's not much more I can do. And then it dawned on me, after speaking to a few people, that I could actually run this property differently. And I'd been working with a service combination agent in the Northwest, and I just said, well, would you take this one on? And because they said they were looking for stuff in Warrington, I said, yeah. And this, yeah, and so what we did is we evicted all the tenants. So we made 5 people homeless, which we didn't really want to do. And then we put it as short-term accommodation. So, and it's been working very, very well. So the income is probably more as a service accommodation. It's a 4-bed now. We can turn one of the rooms into a larger living room. So it's a 4-bed, 4-ensuite, a service accommodation unit. We're making more money doing that turnover than we were as an HMO. And because it's now service accommodation, we went back to the council or the VOA and we said, well, it's no longer a house, it's a business. So we got it rebanded for business rates. And because it's the only SA unit in that company, we then applied for small business rates relief. So we now pay 0 in property tax for that property. So there's a bit of an up yours to the council there, or to the VOA, saying, well, you've affected our business and charged extra for the tenants for 4 years. Now we're gonna get that back, and we're not going to pay anything. So, but it has to be a true service accommodation, and in order for that to work. And in that example, the SA income is better, but in one in Portsmouth that got rebanded, the HMO income as one dwelling is much better than the SA income on that property. So and also it's more reliable because tenants are staying, our tenants stay like 12-18 months minimum with the co-living style of properties that we do. So that's what you can do. I'm sure some questions might be coming up. If they do come up, please pop them in the chat and I'll get to them at the end. So that's where we've got to. That's what's been happening. So what have we done? Well, we thought that someone needs to stop this, and no one else seemed to be doing it. What seemed to be happening was that landlords were fighting it in different ways, different across the country. Some were going in there and just giving up after 2 attempts at repealing it. That was me. We had other landlords who were trying to take it to high court and spending tens of thousands of pounds to try and resolve this. And there's been, in fact, the High Court not been particularly helpful, because they can't change the law. They can't give case law to this. They can only tell the VOA to go review their policy, and what they're going to do is our policy is fine. We realise that it needs to be changed at government level. The instruction needs to come from the level, well, basically the housing secretary or the secretary for Levelling Up, who's Michael Gove. So we've learnt this along the way, but we started back in November 21. So the HMO Council Tax Reform Group started back in November 21. It was started by Wendell Whitaker Large and Darren Brewer with support from Alan Murdy, who was a contact that I'd made. I've been friends with Darren for quite a long time, and we've been chatting about this. And they set up the Facebook group with now over 1,500 members. And then I joined them late 2022, so late 2021, early 2022. And that's when we started to raise money and awareness through doing talks like this, doing webinars, and we started doing fundraising to support the efforts, because lots of admin that goes along behind this. There's the legal fees with Alan that just to get the advice. So we need to get some blood flowing into this animal we want to create to lobby the government. And we still need to keep those funds coming. So I'm going to show you at the end how you guys can help support the cause, and we can grow that fund as well, so that we can make sure that this happens, that the changes happen that we think are going to happen, which is a positive thing, and then that they are correct and that they're implemented correctly. So we started doing that in March 2022. Then in May 2022, we decided, right, we need MPs on board. We need people to actually look at it from the perspective of the people living in these houses, from the tenants' perspective. So we started a letter campaign writing to MPs. And back then, I'm pretty sure I was sharing in this group, please write to your MP, and other groups, please write to your MP. And that was really successful, actually. We had lots of letters going out. We had lots of MPs looking into it, so much so that the MPs started to get the exact same letter back from the department, for the ministerial department. So it was word for word. So we would have an MP in the northeast, an MP in the southwest. They would all kind of say, we're going to look into it. They would inquire with the Department for Levelling Up. Levelling Up would send out this blanket email saying there's been no change in policy, blah, 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 blah. So we were starting to get stonewalled, even though we started to have MPs on board. And this is what we did. We put together the briefing paper to explain the issue in layman's terms to the MPs. So we made sure that every MP got one of these. And we also made sure that the committee who were looking at the Levelling Up Regeneration Bill, which is coming very soon, we made sure that they saw this. And we made sure that we had cross-party support, not just Conservatives. So we did get some cross-party support for it. And we sent this executive summary out. This executive summary is still available to download on our website, and we'll give you that link. In fact, actually, Dan, you can pop the website link out there now. So people can click on that and store that and save that for later. So we started writing the letter campaign, and then two crucial things happened. We got the MP for Portsmouth on board. The MP for Portsmouth is Penny Mordaunt. Now, a year ago, you probably wouldn't have heard of Penny Mordaunt, but now she's one of the big names in politics because she was basically the runner-up twice for, well, the third runner-up for the first time, and then runner-up the second time for the PM job. So Penny Mordaunt is leader of the House of Commons now, and she was a vital supporter of this. And even in the election campaign, not the election campaign, but it wasn't an election, the leadership campaign to get the new leader when Liz Truss won. In the debate, she got this into the national realm, which was great. But when she became a minister, she had her hands tied. Is that because she can't do much as a minister, which is weird. So we came Dame Caroline Dinenage, who's the MP for Gosport, just over the water, good friends with Penny. She's a backbencher, and backbenchers can actually pretty much do what they like. They can lobby, they can make amendments, they can do all sorts of things. So we've learned quite a lot about politics along the way. So Dame Caroline Dinenage, a massive supporter. And when the Levelling Up and Regeneration Bill got to the committee stage, just after the committee stage, it then became open for amendments. And what we did was we created an amendment to what I can't remember exactly which bill it is, but what we wanted to do is get that amendment into Levelling Up and Regeneration Bill so that it would change the relevant law to make sure that a property cannot be rebanded unless it is fully self-contained. So a room, unless it's fully self-contained, cannot be rebanded. So we wrote that amendment. It was called Amendment NC7. I'm not going to read it in detail now, there's no point. But what this does is it means that we're looking at self-containment as a test. And the self-contained test is part of law. But because we mentioned about the four-part test of actual beneficial, actual occupation, beneficial occupation, transiency, and the other one, exclusive occupation, it has to fail one of those four tests before they'll look at the self-contained test. I think it needs to be the other way around. So if it's not self-contained, it shouldn't be even considered for rebanding. So we got this amendment into the Levelling Up and Regeneration Bill, and it was actually this, here it is on the parliamentary website. There's the amendment. It got the second most nominations, or they call it sponsors. So someone submits a amendment to the bill, and then you've got to get loads of MPs to sponsor it so that they take it seriously. If you don't have loads of MPs sponsoring it, they just throw the amendment out because no one really cares. But we had the second most number of MPs, and that was down to all the work that we did in the group, and you guys who helped support, again, write to their MPs to say, please go and support this amendment. So we got people on board. And then you had people lobbying within government as well. So those backbenchers were kind of helping. And to be self-contained, you must be able to do this: eat, sleep, wash, and cook in the bedroom. Okay. So there's a question about what does cooking mean? So that is something which needs defining. And there's a certain type of HMO room which we probably can't save So if someone makes a studio room, a 20 square meter studio room with an all singing, all dancing kitchen, that will probably still get rebanded in the future. So what we do when we do co-living stuff, if we want to do a kitchen, we would do a dry kitchen. And what we're trying to do is as part of a consultation, which I'll mention in a moment, help to define that. And depending on your circumstances, if you've got HMOs and you've done studio rooms in that, feel free to write to the government and say, we don't think these should be included. And if there's a way of excluding them, then wonderful. But ultimately, the idea is that we don't want to penalise people for having a good quality room with their own washing facilities. Now, the website, Dan has put the link in the chat. It's the HMO Council Tax Reform Group. You can go and watch Dame Caroline Dinage on there when she talked about the amendment and why it was so important. And on the front page on there, you've got something which is even more important than that now, because when we got to the end of 2022, something miraculous happened. We managed. I can't say exactly what happened because I'm not really allowed to, but we managed to get a meeting with Michael Gove through the grapevine. We managed to get a meeting with Michael Gove and explain the problem. And Michael Gove looked at it and then wrote us a letter. We actually wrote Dame Caroline Dinage a letter as Caroline as our representative, really, basically saying that we want HMOs to be banded as one dwelling for council tax purposes. And they said this in the Houses of Parliament. Deanna Davidson, who's the one of the ministers that's dealing with this, said it in the House of Parliament, the House of Commons, and we're just like, we're absolutely over the moon. The government intend for HMOs to be banded as one dwelling, apart from in exceptional circumstances. So what they did is they said that they will launch a consultation to find out what the implications of implementing this would be. So the consultation went live in February. So this is where we need your help. So we need you guys, whether you have been affected by this or not. So it doesn't look like anyone in this room has been affected by this, but there might be those watching this back that have been affected by this. If you have been affected by this, then please submit and tell your story. If you've not been affected by this, please submit and tell give your views about why it's unjust. If you disagree and you think it is just, then obviously you can do that, but you'll be in the minority. If you want to write, but we would suggest please do write. And to make the reason we were doing is to clarify what exceptional circumstances mean. And also to think about what's happened to HMOs which have already been rebanded. Should they be able to undo it, or should there be a date by which it comes in where you can't undo it? At the end of the day, I'm not really looking for money back from the council. I'm just looking to make sure that this gets sorted for the future. But if they offer me the chance to get money back, I'll take it. And this consultation, the aim of it is that it gives the government guidance to go away and look at how they can change the law, because in reality, the government, the minister dealing with it, they don't have a clue. They don't have a Scooby about it, and you know what? They don't really care. They just want the result. So they're trying to find a way to get the result because it's so technical that they need to be looking at all the different ins and outs. Ultimately, we want to be having a big party very soon to celebrate changing the law on this, because we believe we're almost there. So Dan, if you could please pop in the chat the links. So in the chat there's a link to a video which my colleague Neil Chadder has put together, which explains how to submit a response for the consultation, because they haven't made it easy. You pretty much just got to send them an email, but they've got this very long document which it took us a good couple of weeks to decipher. And what we have done is turned it into layman speak. And to help you, we've even written answers for every question, which you can copy and paste. You can reword it as you want. You can add in or take away from it as you like. But even if you don't want to do any of that, please just copy and paste it and email it in to the Department of Levelling Up. So Dan is going to put in there a link to a video. And that's a video that talks through the second link, which will be to a site, which is a step-by-step guide. You do this, you click on this, you copy and paste this, and then you send the email. So we've made it as easy as possible for you to be able to submit a response. If you don't understand the consultation or understand any particular question, you don't want to respond to something you don't understand, you can just leave that question out and respond to the other questions. If you trust us in our interpretation of it, then you can just copy and paste it and send it. But that essentially is what we're at. So Dan's put in there the how to submit the consultation, and then there's the second link, which will be the link which takes you to the documents that you can use to create your own submission. Now, if you're an HMO landlord, you can also do an amazing thing by getting your tenants to respond, because we as landlords, we've got a vested interest in wanting to be able to keep life simple and not have to have increased taxes, but the taxes aren't placed on us, they're placed on the tenants. Now, even if you send it out, let's say you've got 50 tenants in your HMOs. If you send it out to those 50 tenants, even if you got 10% of them, 5 people to respond to the consultation, then we've added to it from a tenant's perspective. Because otherwise the government will get loads and loads of responses from landlords, because we're going out there speaking at landlord events. It's so important to get tenants to respond as well. And what we've done as part of this guide, because you can send them the same link, because there's a section for landlords, there's a section for tenants, and there's also a section for managing agents. So if you're a managing agent of HMOs, I know there are some of those in the room here, send it on behalf of your management agency as well. You could submit multiple responses. So Sunil, you manage HMOs, I believe. So you can submit. You don't manage HMOs. No, I'm not going to do that. But if you know somebody who manages HMOs, you say, well, from an HMO management perspective, this is a nightmare. Why would ever want to do this? And then you can submit it from an investor, from a landlord perspective. As a landlord, I don't understand why I would do this. It's only from different emails, but you can have multiple responses giving different angles, and then the government will collate all of this. They'll look through it and they'll make a decision about how they're going to implement it. We believe this is a box ticking exercise. We believe this will happen. The time frame for that is to happen at the same time as the Levelling Up and Regeneration Bill gets royal assent. Now, we had hoped that would be in April, but what they've actually done is they moved the King's Speech. So we found out last week they've moved the King's Speech. So the King's Speech, it'll be around that time. So it's probably another 3 to 6 months away. So that's why you need to be aware of this, because it can still happen to you. You can still get rebanded in that meantime. But the consultation ends at the end of March. So you've only got a couple of weeks to get it in. So if you have any time after this, I'd say please take 5 minutes, go to the link which Dan has put in there. Where's it gone? The Nevo Living link. Click on that and go through and submit your response. Just copy and paste and email it in, because then you're helping your future investments, you're protecting your existing investments, and you're actually helping the UK housing market. Speaking of the UK housing market, we actually found out that the way that the government counts how many new dwellings are created partly is through council tax. So they'll look at the number of new council tax bands that have been created, and they'll add it to the UK housing numbers. Now, we had suspected that this had been going on, but we actually got confirmation a week or so ago that this was actually the case. So the UK housing numbers are being inflated by the creation of dwellings rooms as dwellings. So that's where we need your help. And as a group, we also need your help to keep momentum going. So it does take a little bit of money, it doesn't take heaps of money to keep going, but we have a page, and Dan is just going to put a link in there to a GoFundMe page. We recommend donations of at least £300 or above, which is a drop in the ocean compared to the council tax bills that you will get when you get rebanded. And given that we've got this far, do you know what? I think it's only fair that if we've saved your bacon, that you can help us to continue to save your bacon, and also to make sure that they don't mess it up, because it could still go wrong when they try to fix it, because the VOA are very good at reinterpreting the law. Let's put it that way. So even if the law gets changed in the next 3 to 4 months, we're still going to be at this for probably at least another 12 to 18 months, helping landlords that have been rebanded go back to where they should be, helping to ensure that the government, the Department for Levelling Up, actually do the right thing in getting this sorted. And at some point in that, there's going to be an election, and that could mess the whole thing up as well. So so what we're looking to do is just get this changed. So thank you to everyone who has already contributed. If you go to the link now, you can see people have been generally donating between 100 and 300 pounds, some over 500 pounds, to help, again, as I say, to fund the cause, fund the admin, fund the legal fees, to actually progress this forward. So that ends the kind of the prepared part of today. And I'm very happy to answer anybody's questions about it. If no one's got any questions, I suggest we take the last 7 minutes of today and all go and submit our responses. We do it no time like the present. Otherwise, Sunil, where are you? He's gone. It's left me to it. It's left me holding the fort. So let's see if there are any questions in the chat. Amit, thank you very much. You're a broker, fantastic. Do you know if one can apply to the VOA for business rates if the property is a rent to SA? Yes, of course. If it's service accommodation, you could be paying business rates. But before you do that, you want to check the implications of that. Because if you're doing, because it doesn't matter who owns the property. If you're renting it and then service accommodating it, then the landlord would need to be aware that you're making a change, I would imagine. And if you've got multiple properties that this is happening to, and you want to get the small business rates relief, you only get that on one property in your company. So if you're doing rent to SA, my assumption is that you've probably got 5 to 10 of these at least. Then you'll only get it on the first one. Then you'll have to pay business rates on the rest. And the business rates might not be cheaper than the council tax, might even be more in some cases. So you probably want to have a look. And there are experts in this type of thing. Okay. Is Sunil back with us?
Yes, Matt, fantastic. Thank you.
No worries. You're back on your iPhone.
Yeah, it's just I don't know. I lost the connection, but yeah, thank you for continuing.
Yeah, not a problem at all. So I've gone out for questions. We've got a couple come into the chat, so I'll just keep answering them, and then until they dry up. I'm happy to anyone to speak as well. Emma, can you clarify what you believe the room should include, not include, to remove the banding? My belief, it's not up to me to change the law to be what I want it to be, but my belief is that if your property has got an ensuite, just an ensuite, it should not be rebanded. If it has space for someone to cook, and there's a microwave there, I didn't necessarily put the microwave in. The tenant might have put the microwave in, but that technically is ability to cook. I don't think that's enough of a physical change to the property to mean that that's a working kitchen. My view is that if you have fixed cooking facilities, so a sink, a built-in oven, potentially a built-in microwave, I would say that's probably enough for the VOA to turn around and say that's a self-contained dwelling. And so where I would draw the line is a dry kitchen. So if you've got an ensuite, they've got access to running water anyway. And if they've got a worktop, then they could choose to put a microwave on it. They could choose to put a fridge there, but they can't go and get a frying pan out and make a stir fry. That's where I've drawn the line. They have to go to the main kitchen to do that. So I would say that you can't properly cook in that room. but you are welcome to your own opinion when you put your response in to the consultation as well.
Matt,
Pam, yes.
sorry, can I just ask you a question? I know you're going to just go to the chat, but you said earlier about us not sending information to the local authority.
Yes.
And I've always been under the impression that as the local authority, they have a right to information, and as a landlord or the agent, I cannot refuse that information. Would that be correct? And I mean, I'd be glad if you told me that I was wrong, because
I'm not going to tell you you're wrong. I'm going to tell you what I would do, which is I would withhold that information until the very bitter end. I don't need to give it to them quickly. I might have to give it to them in the end, but what I would be doing is I would be seeking legal advice at that point if they're starting to do that. So Alan Murdy, as he does consultations, and also if you donate to the council tax reform group, then you get access to specific webinars that we do where Alan's there. He can answer specific questions and he touches on the legal topics as well. So you'd be able to have a quick chat with him to say, and you could ask your specific question about the VOA or the councillor asking for this information, or the VOA asking for this information. Do I have to give it to them? And then he can give you a proper legal response. But I would not just give it to them because they ask straight away.
Yeah, no, that's very good. Thank you for clarifying that, because I've always had the belief that they have a duty for the free, and we've always taught our team to say, yeah, if the council rings, then we need to give that information. But I hear what you're saying.
Yeah, and the thing is, we're not wanting to get on the wrong side of the council. We're not wanting to do anything wrong, because the types of properties that we're creating are high end. They're really nice. If it's got an ensuite, it's at the top of the market anyway. So it's not like I'm worried about the council saying that we're creating poor quality housing. I'm just going to go by the letter of what I can get away with to stop them rebanding me, which I think is morally and also I think is legally wrong, and hopefully will soon be legally wrong.
Brilliant, thank you.
No worries. I'll go back to the chat for a minute. Pam, I reckon I'll touch on co-living as well, probably the last thing that I do, and we'll keep it to the VOA stuff first. Can I request to change the VOA officer be considered if favourable? Can I request to change the VOA officer be considered? I don't know the answer to that. That would be a question for Alan. I've never heard of requesting to get a different listing officer. I mean, I don't see why you couldn't try asking. As with anything, you ask, like the council, they ask you. He's like, well, I'm going to ask them. I think you got to be forceful with this and push back, and don't just take what they say at face value. Do the VOA need to inspect to reband it, or can they do based on desktop data? I don't believe the VOA ever came to my HMO to reband it. They definitely never came to the one in Portsmouth to reband it. They did it based on the planning application. So for our most recent co-living application in Portsmouth, we removed all the ensuites from the plans. So we can put them in later. So the publicly available plans are for shared bathrooms, and that's what we'll build. And then once we've built that, then there's nothing to stop us from changing it in the future. And I've just realised this is being recorded. Is what it is.
It's okay. We can edit. You're my friends here. We will not put anything out that is going to be detriment to anybody.
Well, if we could just edit out that comment there, just in case anyone from Portsmouth City Council sees that. No, definitely. Not that I think I'm doing anything wrong, but I'm playing creative property developer. Yeah, which is the game I like to play, to be fair.
Yeah, no, it's brilliant advice for those in this group, but we will edit that bit out. Thank you.
Amit, very good question. I like this one. It's definitely not a silly question. If you remove existing kitchen facilities from rooms, can the banding be reversed? So in the current climate, I would say no. But in the future, once they've clarified the law, then I would say yes. So if you're buying I wouldn't necessarily do this with a really high-end HMO, because so that, well, you always have to weigh up, because if you've been rebanded, you've got a studio room, your rent's going to be up here, but they're paying the council tax on top of that. So if you remove the council tax from that and you remove the kitchen, then and you get it rebanded, then it's a cost benefit analysis. But if you're buying a rundown HMO, because I've seen this quite a bit, where rundown HMOs, which are more like bed sits, they've been rebanded, and you're doing a full refurb, I would say don't put the kitchens back in, just do like a bit of a pot noodle station, dry kitchen, and then yes, apply to get that rebanded as one. So I would expect that to be rebanded as one in the future once we've won this battle. Cool. Any other questions? I was going to talk about co-living. So Powermass, can you touch a bit on co-living, please? What specifically about co-living do you want to know? For me, co-living is when an HMO works really well. So an HMO is the house, it's the thing. An HMO is a legally defined asset by the Housing Act, and you can have a variety of different types of HMO. Co-living is when there's an intentional community that forms within the property. So it's not necessarily about the quality of the property, but I think a lot of co-living has been linked to design. It's not about design. It's generally about the way it's managed. So if you've got the HMO itself, that's the house. Co-living, the community is it's almost like the aura, the wrapper that goes around it, which makes it work really well. Because when you've got an intentional community that we've formed through creating a property with great design, great space, and great service, then you're more likely for the tenants to get on. We curate the tenants that are going in, and therefore they're more likely to get on. When the tenants get on, they are less likely to have any issues. They're likely to stay longer. If the property is really good quality, then you can get really good quality rents for it. So what we're doing is increasing profitability through increasing quality, and a quality of product and quality of service. That's in a nutshell about co-living. I can go about co-living for hours. And in fact, I suggest if you want to know more about co-living, grab a copy of my book. And in fact, everyone that's turned up tonight, Sunil is going to, I've agreed with Sunil that I'll send out a complimentary copy to everyone that's here tonight. Is that right, Sunil?
Absolutely, and I do appreciate you doing that, for us. And I know you've done it before. And as last time, we would ask people to review the book. There's so much great information in there. Take the time to go through it. If you find value, then please take the time to review, because it helps Matt, it helps the industry, it helps increase standards, etc. So yeah, I'd really appreciate if you could do that. And thank you, Matt. Again, I know you haven't finished, but for this evening, some fantastic value.
Yeah, not a problem at all. And I think last time I was on here, it was the first edition of the book that was out, whereas now this is the updated edition. Then the updates are generally around planning permissions, because I do talk about commercial conversions to HMO, which is something I love doing, and some of how the PD rights can work with that. But I've written it as a bit of a reference guide as well, so it's not just a book where you're going to be like, oh, he's talking about himself for 2/3 of it. There are stories in there are case studies, but a lot of it is actually material. And I've seen people that that show me the book, and they've got tabs all over it, so they can refer to it. So yeah, please do take it, and we'll send out a PDF version via email. If anyone desperately wants a physical copy, just send me a message. There was one question I saw which I might answer before we wrap up, Sunil.
Yeah, brilliant.
Can you explain more about non-ensuite house that has multiple bands? Yes. The reason why they banded it is because they assumed that it could have ensuites. So, and this happened. I don't know whether this is the case that might win an appeal. I don't know what's happened to it since I heard that it happened, but it's something that should definitely be appealed. But the weird thing about this particular property that got rebanded was that it's a student property. So they rebanded a house with 6 students in it, it might have been 6 or 7 students in it, to 6 or 7 lots of council tax, and they got students in it. So the students are going to get the bill and they're going to go, well, I'm a student, so I'm not going to pay it. And the council go, okay, you're a student, you don't have to pay it. But then for the maybe 1 or 2 weeks when they move out, then your landlord's got to pay it. And if a student moves out like 1 week before or 1 week after, then it gets really, really messy. So there's that bit to worry about. But yeah, essentially it happened to the landlord's property, and the landlord hadn't provided any information, and the council, I think, just assumed that, oh yeah, we're just going to ban it, or not the council, the VOA assumed we're just going to reban it. So that's all I know about that one at the moment. Yes, laugh out loud. You cannot write this stuff. Like, council tax is the most bizarre, and in reality, and this is something that Alan always comes back to, the way that properties are taxed and have an overhaul every about 30 years. And the last time we created a law on how to tax properties was back in 1991. That was that's when council tax came in. It's when they abolished the poll tax and they brought council tax in. It's been 30 years, and council tax has been tinkered with for 30 years with amendments here. There's about 3 or 4 different legislations, legislations, and lots of different regulations that talk about it. The whole system, I believe, and we believe as a group, is broken. Once we fix this, we're not going to try and fix council tax. So, like, that's too big a drama to try and do. But and also no government in their right mind is going to run saying that we're going to reform council tax. So, and given that there's a big chance that we're going to have a bit of a change in governance in the next year or so. It is next year, isn't it, the general election, 2024? So within a year we could have a new government, which see things very, very differently. So who knows? Well, is what it is. We'll see what issues come up then, and we'll deal with them at that time. But that's probably it for me. So now, back to you.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic. And the fact that so many people have continued on in the evening enforces what the interest that the interest in what you're saying this evening. So thank you for that. And there's loads of positive comments in the chat to thank you for coming on this evening. I know we need to close because you need to go and have dinner. Scott, if you want to come in, did you want to come in with a quick question?
Yeah, I've got something. I've just bought a tired HMO, quite a big 9-bed, but it's more of a bed set, sort of all kitchens rather than bathrooms. Yeah. And literally the council this week have just asked me to send details of everyone that lives there.
Well, that's have they? I wonder where they're going with that.
Yeah, so I was just sitting there thinking whether I should reply to that one or not.
I think that letter got lost in the post.
Yeah,
this gets edited out too, Sunil.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. I think that letter got lost in the post, and I reckon you can drag that out for quite a while until we have more confirmation of the law changing.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cheers.
And was it in? Thanks, Scott, and I hope it goes well. And I think all the mail comes in and we put it in a big bag, don't we, when we go into a property, and that's
or goes into junk mail. I always say most of mine goes into junk mail.
Yeah, return to sender. Yeah,
not known here.
Yeah, no, brilliant. So did they put in the chat in terms of getting? I think there was a link, wasn't there, to the group where the people can make a contribution.
Yes, so I'd say the key actions for you guys off the back of today. So tonight, if possible, whilst you're sitting there watching EastEnders, please do go and click on the link. And Dan, it might be good if we could share it again. So it's at the bottom. But the most important one is to create your own submission. That's the one that which is the nevoliving.com/HMO-consultation. That has the links. It has the documents that you can copy and paste from, depending on who you are, whether you're an agent, a landlord, or a tenant. and then it'll tell you how to email. So that's the first one to do. If you find that difficult to follow and you're not sure what to do, there is the video walkthrough, which Dan has put in there as well, where Neil has told you exactly what to do, where to click, and the idiot's guide for how to respond to this consultation. And then finally, please take some time, not some time, but please just go and submit a donation to the HMO Council Tax Reform Group, because I think the team, I don't get anything for it. It's my time that I give to this. I don't get anything for this. The guys that get anything for this is literally, it covers expenses, it covers legal fees, it covers, we have an admin with quite a lot of research that goes on in the background, it covers the admin and researchers to be able to do that. So I think we've raised over £7,000 so far, and we're looking for a goal of at least 15,000 to enable us to continue to grow and push this forward over the next 12 months. It is the lifeblood that allows us to do this. And so please do, but yeah, around about 300 quid. So if you think about, if you think about what happened at the HMO, my HMO got rebranded, council tax went from £110 a month to over £412 a month. So that £300 is 1 month's increase in my council tax bill. So it's not a lot of money in the grand scheme of things. So, but again, I know I'm being forceful there, but it's whatever you can afford. It is something which I think is highly valuable. And assuming we can do this, we're gearing up for the next fight, because I think we want to be representing HMO landlords, and we've got a really good relationship now with the NRLA. We've got a good relationship with the current housing department. But you know, if that changes next year, we'll obviously have to rebuild that. But you know, we want to be lobbying for HMOs, because it's highly it's not, people don't look after the HMO sector. The councils and basically everyone thinks HMO landlords are the scum of the earth. You know, if landlords are the scum of the earth, HMO landlords are, you know, the worse than that. So we want to be changing that. We want to make sure that HMOs, because they're one of the only assets that actually work these days for investors to continue to develop. So it's going to be a huge part and a growing part of the housing market. So we need to be lobbying for this moving forward. And this is something which we're going to change. We are changing. So any help that you can give by bare minimum responding to the consultation and then by donating would be absolutely fantastic. We're also going to be at the Property Investor Show in April if anyone wants to come and meet us. We're hoping that we'll have some good news by then about the consultation. It might be a bit soon, but we'll see. So if anyone is there, then please do come and say hi. We're doing a panel about this to update and talk more about it.
Matt, just thank you again for this evening. Congratulations on your various awards. I think there's one behind you, but we can't see it. But yeah,
that's right. I'll bring it forward. You can see it. There you go.
No, amazing achievement in getting those awards and being recognised by the industry and wider people. So congratulations. Just before we close, could you just tell people about your podcast, because I know that's been really fantastic and there's amazing information on there.
Yes, so I'm the co-host of Property Jam podcast. So we are the no nonsense, no holes barred version of a property podcast. So we our aim is not to inform, it's more to entertain. And we believe that when we entertain you and we have great guests on there, we have great stories, great it's about mindset, it's about property investing, it's about tenants, it's about working with investors, it's about every single part of the property investment journey, really. So there's 3 of us as co-hosts and we get some amazing guests on there, and yeah, it's designed to educate through stories rather than say, this is how I did this, this is how I did that. You get a little bit of that, but we think you're going to remember it a lot better if you enjoy listening to it. So we had a growing fan base of property jammers, and so if you are a podcast listener and you're in property or looking to get in property, then please do go and subscribe to Property Jam Podcast.
Fantastic. And on that note, I'll say thank you again. Listen to the podcast, read the book, leave a review. Please fill in the form. Please support this cause. That these guys are tirelessly to get to where they are, and all we've got to do is just support. They've taken the leadership and got some fantastic names in that circle working, and I know Neil has been fantastic as well. He's helped us so much, and you came on Clubhouse. We got a fantastic response there, and again with Neil as well, fantastic response. So we're looking to do that in the near future, because we've had requests for people to say, oh, what's the update? Can you keep? Yeah, so that'd be fantastic. So yeah, lots
to come back on Clubhouse. Yeah,
fantastic. Yeah, we'll put that in very soon, guys. We'll be on Clubhouse tomorrow morning, 7:30, talking about the budget and how that's going to impact various people. And you know, we just got to protect our businesses and our incomes and our wealth from the good old government. So on that note, I wish you all a good night, Matt. Thank you again. Thank you, Dan. And thank you everyone for joining us. See you soon, Scott, and everybody else.
Good night.
Good night. Thank you.